New York taught me to carry paper, not a notebook for plans, paper for odds and ends, receipts that become maps, flyers that turn into invitations, wrappers that hold a day's proof. The first month I lived in Crown Heights, I found a battered paperback on top of a laundromat dryer with a sticky note on the cover and a penciled arrow into the spine. If you find this, read page 73 on the 2 train, add one line in the margin, leave the book at the end of the line. R. It was a copy of The Great Gatsby that had met rain and survived. I took the southbound 2 at Franklin Avenue in a car that smelled like umbrella and aftershave. On page 73, someone had underlined a sentence about light pretending to be a promise. I added in the margin that the city's promises arrive as drafts. At Flatbush Avenue, I set the book on the bench under the mosaic fish, felt ridiculous in a way that suggested I might be alive, and went to work. I do digitization at a small historical society in Brooklyn. Flatbed scanners, careful fingers, the patience to read other centuries' handwriting. My days are full of old receipts and sharper ink. The book became a secret I could touch. A week later, I found another in the dollar cart outside a used store on Court Street, clearly chosen by the same hand. If you find this, read the last page on the ferry to Staten Island. Circle one word you needed today. Leave the book on a window ledge near the terminal. I circled still and left the paperback where gulls could examine my taste. The books kept arriving in ways that made coincidence feel like a conspiracy for my benefit. A dog-eared poetry collection at a coffee shop on Nostrand asked for a sentence about the color of rain at 6 a.m. A spiral-bound play left on a bench by the Brooklyn Museum wanted a list of sounds you believe in more than advice. A battered novella taped under a table at Veselka requested a drawing of a pier, any pier, and an admission about leaving. I responded as J because I couldn't bear being no one. I wrote my lines with a mechanical pencil that had migrated from work to pocket and stayed, probably because it sensed a plot. I followed instructions. I missed 2 and admitted it next time. Each time someone, R, had left a line already. We had compatible handwriting. It looked like we had practiced together. R's lines were direct without being pushy. They described a woman on the 2 sewing a button onto a coat while the car lurched like sincerity. They noted that the East River smells like a metal band trying to be a choir. They talked about the boredom of being brave. I answered with small truths. That I can't read in a moving car, but I can while walking. That cabs make me feel like a tourist in my own spine. That I trust the part of the day before email remembers me. Other people added too. A small comet doodle hovered beside a line about pier pilings. A tall block-lettered M confessed he cried at the end of a sitcom finale on a delayed D train. An A sketched a perfect pigeon and wrote that pigeons are proof the city forgives shoes. The city added muscle memory to the ritual. On Tuesdays after work, I walked to the promenade, found a book taped under a bench with blue painter's tape, and read whatever I was told to read. On Fridays, I brought 2 clothespins to hang a paperback temporarily on a chain-link fence near a community garden off Pacific Street, because the instructions said books should breathe before being handled. On Sundays, I cut through Prospect Park to leave a slim novel on a picnic table where someone had carved L+T in a neat heart like a promise that understood drafts. Every instruction included an endpoint that was a place, not a person, a window ledge, a ferry terminal, a cafe bathroom shelf, the little free library by the firehouse in Red Hook. The books moved around us like small weather. Work gave me an excuse to learn the city's oldest faces. I digitized a binder of menus from vanished restaurants and knew which neighborhood favored grapefruit cocktails in 1963. I scanned a stack of letters about a block association that saved a sycamore from a developer and cried in the supply closet in a way that felt like a useful ache. Everything I touched seemed to agree. There are always 2 histories, the one with a plaque and the one with scratch marks from pocket change. By late October, the margin notes stopped asking for single actions and started daring me. Walk the length of Eastern Parkway from the Brooklyn Museum to Grand Army Plaza in the rain and write about how statues understand weather. Stand on the Manhattan Bridge and count trains without speaking to anyone, then write what you would have said if you had. Go to Coney Island on a weekday in winter. Eat something hot you didn't plan to eat. Leave the wrapper in your pocket as a secret map. At Coney Island, I sat on a bench with a bad angle on the horizon and drank a paper cup of clam chowder that tasted like persistence. I wrote that the sea is the only repetitive thing that improves upon repetition. I pressed the note into the spine of a paperback that had asked for my winter and left it on the back step of the closed roller coaster like an apology that wanted to be forgiveness. Ours next note arrived in a book about bridges. Bryant Park Reading Room. Thursday, lunch hour. Bring any book that once saved you for an afternoon. No names. Reasons only. Sit facing the carousel. If I am not there, leave your reason under the third chair from the left. R. I work in Brooklyn but take my lunch like a portable country. On Thursday, I carried a slim novel my father had handed me when my parents' marriage did a credible impression of the Manhattan skyline in a windstorm. The Bryant Park Reading Room pretends New York is a small town and almost gets away with it. Kids press their hands to plastic covers. A man slept upright with grace. Office workers arranged tote bags into furniture logic. I sat facing the carousel with my book open to a page that had once convinced me to stay where I was and see if later could be a friend. I wrote my reason on a card provided by the reading room. This book taught me that quiet isn't an absence. It's a tool. I put it under the third chair from the left because instructions are a kind of kindness. Then I waited in the way you do when you're aware of your own heartbeat and trying not to look like you are. A person sat 2 chairs away, coat with a sewn-on patch of a lighthouse, gloves that meant business. They held a book of essays and a posture that suggested permission. They placed a small card on the chair's slat, not looking in my direction. The card was a reason written in tidy, unshowy handwriting I recognized. This book made me less afraid of my own eyebrows when they insisted on honesty. The card had a tiny comment in the corner. We didn't speak. The carousel sang its loop politely. A wind made everyone adjust their scarves in the same second, like an orchestra that hadn't had time to rehearse but loved the music anyway. We filled out 2 more cards and hid them like breadcrumbs. This sentence taught me how to mean it. This paragraph forgave me for not being special every day. When the hour was done, the lighthouse in patches, stood, tucked their book into a bag with a pin that read, "I like your reference," and left a small folded paper on the chair. The paper asked for a walk. Saturday morning, footpath on the Williamsburg Bridge, the Manhattan side. Write the first sentence you loved on the back of your hand. Look for ink. I wrote the first sentence I loved on my hand in pencil and then in pen because the pencil made me nervous. The bridge shook itself awake as trains went past our ankles. The footpath families did their careful ballet. I looked for ink and found it on a palm that matched my own handwriting's grammar. The first line of a Baldwin novel that taught me how to be precise without cruelty. We walked toward each other like there were only 2 directions in the world and chose the one that felt like a draft of home. No names. Reasons only. We traded cards like children in a game that had no losers. We walked to the Manhattan side and then kept walking without asking permission from a schedule. We wrote on a bench in Sarah D. Roosevelt Park that some mornings are less a plan than a vote. We wrote on a receipt from a deli where the hot sauce options deserve degrees that owning a favorite corner is a kind of citizenship. We wrote on a MetroCard that turnstiles are proof the city will meet you halfway if you bring the rest. Winter did its loudest version. The books moved indoors. A paperback hid in the returns card at the Brooklyn Heights branch with a note asking for a drawing of your favorite doorknob. The woman at the desk pretended not to notice because she understood the rule. If it improves behavior, let it be weird. We finally broke the no-names rule by choosing to, not by accident. On an afternoon when the snow fell like a suggestion and Bryant Park held an outdoor literary event that made everyone pretend they weren't freezing, we wrote our names on a shared card because the reasons wanted a place to live. Riley wrote theirs with calm. Jules wrote mine with relief. We did not exchange more details than the subway lines we each trusted. We did not make a performance out of recognizing that we had built a friendship out of homework we assigned ourselves. The city kept helping. At the Queen's Night Market, we wrote on the back of a Momo stall's menu that there are only 2 kinds of hunger, and this one is friendly. In the lobby of the main branch of the New York Public Library, we wrote, under a picture of a lion, that guardians are allowed to nap. Courage doesn't mind. In a classroom where Riley teaches 10th graders the physics of sound, a student asked if feelings make different frequencies. Riley wrote me that the class decided the answer was yes, and then proved it using a slinky in 3 excellent metaphors. The books began to carry tasks we invented. Leave 2 quarters on a washer in a laundromat on a Sunday morning. Take a picture of a door that does not pretend. Name 3 things you notice about the person at the end of the bench without telling yourself a story about them. Mail a postcard to your own address with a compliment that will arrive on a bad day. We broke one rule eventually. We let voices in, not on purpose. One rainy Wednesday at the reading room, the tent sagged and a staffer, the man with the patient smile and the clipboard full of cart schedules, asked if we could help move tables before the nylon gave up. We said yes and did the thing the city teaches best. We became part of furniture logic until the room remembered how to hold itself. Afterward, he handed us cocoa and didn't ask why our hands were inked. Spring brought more benches and fewer instructions. We started handing books directly instead of to the city. The first one I gave Riley was the slim novel I had carried to Bryant Park. It had a new book plate I had made from a digitized menu border and a stamp that said "Reasons Only." The book Riley handed me was a collection of essays that forgave California for being itself and taught me how to allow a day to arrive without sprinting at it. We kept the notes for ourselves and for anyone paying attention. It turned out plenty of people pay attention when you make a habit of permission. A kid we saw often on the 2 toward Flatbush started bringing a composition notebook with a cover so stickered it looked armored. A woman in a marigold coat began leaving folded maps in cafes with one path highlighted, the route that comfort takes in her neighborhood when it's late. In June, the laundromat where I found the first book taped a small sign near the machines. If you're swapping books, you're doing it right. We left a stack in the plastic basket under the folding table and a note that said the rules were simple. Be kind to margins. Be kinder to the person who left their first sentence here. We didn't turn our ritual into a job or a brand or a confession. We let it be what it had always been, the world asking for specifics and us choosing to answer in pencil first and pen later. Some nights we still walk the Manhattan Bridge and count trains without speaking to anyone, then sit at the end and say what we would have said if we had. Usually something soft, often something precise. If you ride the 2 at an hour when you can hear your own headphones and see a paperback with a sticky note asking you to read a certain page where the city turns into a draft of itself, take it. Add a line in the margin, leave it where the instructions ask. The book won't care if your handwriting shakes. The city will forgive any metaphor you haven't grown into yet. And if you find a card with a tiny comet, write a reason beside it. We're still collecting them, the way you collect good weather, by standing in it long enough to remember your posture. Names optional, reasons required. The rest arrives on time if you let it.